Hello, everybody. Michael Tracy here. So, the fallout from last night's pretty dramatic incident is continuing. Obviously, people are aware by now that Trump ordered airstrikes on a Syrian government held target, namely a base from which Syrian government strikes had been carried out. Um, and Not surprisingly, the aftermath of this has been that the Russian government spokespeople are rather annoyed, or at least that's what they're communicating publicly. Um, a spokesperson for Putin declared the event to be a quote aggression against a sovereign government, which is just factually true. I mean, it is on its face accurate that a an attack against a foreign state which had not in any way threatened the state of the aggressor, that constitutes an act of aggression against a sovereign government. Remember, Russia is operating or had been operating in Syria at the behest of the Syrian government, and they still are. Whereas the U.S. is now a uninvited hostile belligerent vis-a-vis the Assad government. And then the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, he now has declared, I think pretty reasonably, that, quote, it's obvious to any specialist that the decision in Washington to carry out strikes was taken before the events in Idlib, which were used as a pretext for the demonstration of force. So I think anybody with sort of a modicum of common sense would at least have a very strong suspicion that the impetus cited for this attack as a rationale was pretextual. I mean, Trump literally could not be any less convincing in saying that he was watching television. This is what he said to the New York Times. He said he was watching TV and he was so moved by these images of beleaguered children from the chemical weapons attack that he felt a deep moral compulsion to act decisively to punish the perpetrators. Now, this all happened so rapidly that it's not even clear that the perpetrators were the Assad-related forces. I mean, it's possible, but for that conclusion to just be leapt to so briskly, I mean, in the span of less than 48 hours, that alone should give people pause as to whether that was a accurate assessment on the part of the quote-unquote intelligence services of the U.S., and some foreign services seem to assent to that finding. So now the consequence of this is that Russia has suspended a critical military communications link that had been in place for some time. Obama actually sought to establish that link as well, so as to best combat ISIS in Syria without running astray and unintentionally coming into conflict with Russian forces, which are also stationed there. So that link has now been suspended by Russia, and now the line coming from Moscow is that this is reminiscent of the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Obviously, there are differences in scale and in other detail, but the parallels are troubling, and in fact, in some sense, the danger here in terms of wider escalation is even greater, because when the U.S. invaded Iraq in 2003, it's not as if the Ba'athist regime there was being sustained as a client state by a foreign nuclear armed power, whereas now we seem to be on a course where we could be set up for pretty direct confrontation with Russia. So I discussed some of this in a Medium post that went up today, or actually just a short time ago. And the point that I have wanted to make, and it might be uncomfortable for some people to digest, but I think it's definitely accurate, is that although the person who initiated the military force is the one who was most directly responsible for any of the ensuing fallout or any of the ensuing damage that is wrought. So, and that person in this case would be Trump. He ordered the airstrike. There's no doubt about that, and he's to blame for it and its consequences. But as I outlined in this piece, which I'll link to in the description box, presidents don't operate inside vacuums. I mean, they are, in a sense, products of the political climate in which they are operating. And Trump has been operating in a political climate in which he is routinely and almost daily accused by Democrats of pretty significant influence, of being, quote, in bed with or, quote, cozied up to Putin, being compromised by the Kremlin, being a pawn of the Russian state apparatus, literally having committed treason. So obviously there's going to be some political incentive there for Trump to dispel those accusations, which have been in some sense hobbling his agenda and even gradually causing some Republicans to get on board with the Democratic shrieks and say that potentially there is something to this idea that Trump is actively colluding or has colluded with the Russian government. So it's not surprising, and it's something that I've talked about for some time now, that Trump could seek to demonstrate his independence from Putin with a rash military action, the consequences of which haven't really been fully fleshed out. And this was pretty much the definition of rash, in that it only took, again, something like 48 hours for administration officials to make a complete reversal in terms of their posture vis-a-vis Syria, that than the one they had articulated something like just a few days prior. And it's definitely in conflict with the campaign pledges that Trump had made all throughout the 2016 campaign as to how he would approach the Russian situation. So it was definitely rash. Was it impulsive? Perhaps. But on the other hand, you have everybody from Israel to the United Kingdom cheering Trump's action. Hillary Clinton seems to have cheered it. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Senator Bill Nelson, Senator Dick Durbin. Many Democrats are on board with this, in addition to the usual suspects in the Republican Party like Graham, Rubio, McCain. So Trump has achieved bipartisan consensus, and and he's winning some accolades in the cable news media, which he's apparently obsessed with. Fareed Zakaria, said that this was the moment that Trump became president on CNN, because, of course, to make one serious, one has to demonstrate that they are willing to carry out military actions, no matter how rash or no matter what the fallout could be. So, read that Medium piece that just went up if you are interested. I think Democrats bear some responsibility to here, and to deny that is just diluted. Yes, nobody disputes that the person who authorizes the strike, meaning the president, bears ultimate responsibility, but that doesn't mean that there are no other factors which were relevant in creating this situation. So that is it for now. Things seem to be proceeding pretty rapidly. I just saw a news alert from the AP which says that senior U.S. military officials say the Pentagon is looking into whether Russia participated in the Syrian chemical weapons attacks. Just think about that. If it is somehow established or even asserted that Russia was complicit in this chemical weapons attack, then the grounds that were cited for attacking Assad would also presumably apply to attacking Russia. I mean, if they are complicit in this attack, and the attack was the reason to launch airstrikes against Syrian government targets, then the same rationale could conceivably apply to Russian government targets. And that would be an unmediated disaster for reasons that I hope I don't have to articulate here. They should be pretty obvious. So that's it for now. I'll be following this closely, of course, and I'll do some updates in the near future. So we'll see you later.